Hi team, Sergeant Major Daly and I are here to share with you a new squad level tool you can put in your kit bag as you train on holistic health and fitness. It's called the High Achievement Series, and it gets after sometimes neglected but nevertheless vitally important domain of H2F, spiritual readiness. Unit ministry teams across our formation have taken the time to distill the principles found in FM 7-22 Chapter 10 into 4 key areas: leadership, squads, families, and souls.
Hey, that's right, sir. Now listen, I already know what some of you may be thinking. That may be great for some people, but religion isn't my thing. Well, here's the reality. The Army doesn't limit spirituality to just religion. It can include anything that provides you, the soldier, with the personal qualities necessary such as hope, meaning, purpose, and identity that you and your squad use to overcome times of stress, hardship, tragedy. You can find this series on YouTube and Divots.
That's right. And each squad will be able to combine the high achievement training with a team building activity of your choice. As you work to strengthen the professional connections within your squad, you will also be strengthening your spiritual readiness.
Remember, every domain at H2F is important to readiness and putting people first. The CG and I look forward to hearing how your squad is getting after the spiritual domain with 11th Airborne Division's very own High Achievement Series.
That's right. Arctic Angels.
Hello, and welcome to this 4-part series called High Achievement. This episode will focus on the requirements of a high-achieving leader. General George Patton Jr. wisely said that a leader is one that can adapt principles to circumstances. In the following videos, you will see an Army leader who adapted leadership principles to the challenging circumstances of climbing Denali, North America's highest peak, which towers at 20,310 feet. After each of the following videos, take a few minutes to stop, assess yourself as a leader, and commit to becoming a high-achieving leader.
High achieving leader, definitely someone who's a mentor, someone who can instruct me if I'm doing the wrong thing and put me in the right, someone who probably knows what they're doing.
I think a high achieving leader is probably somebody who is spending a lot of time with their soldiers.
Centers themselves around the Army leadership requirement model.
Soldiers look back on that leader and think, I want to be like him. So when they're a platoon sergeant or a platoon leader or a company commander, they can think back and think, I want to replicate what that guy or girl was able to do because they really made a difference in my life.
A high-achieving leader always looks out for the welfare of his troops.
So a good leader is pushing their subordinates to limits that maybe the subordinate didn't think they could achieve. So they're making their subordinates those high achievers.
High achieving leader is obviously technically and tactically competent, but for me, it's much more involved with the individual soldiers and their families. So knowing them, knowing their personalities, and that's how you get after problems. When they have a problem, you know because you recognize the changes in their pattern.
It's less thoughts of yourself and more of others, and being a quality servant leader. Just a quality servant to other people, it becomes natural.
Someone who continues to learn and grow and develop themselves inside and outside of their uniform.
Very confident, has an open door policy, and is strict but fair.
Someone that communicates with their squad, motivates them to better themselves.
A high achieving leader would be one that pushes all the soldiers he has underneath them to be the best that they can be.
Someone who goes above and beyond and goes beyond their regular norm, do stuff that's uncomfortable to them to give an example for their soldiers to follow.
Works with their soldiers. I mean, I've seen a lot of people that go down, sit down, watch all their soldiers work, and they come in and yell at them when something's not done. I like to walk around and actually work with my soldiers so they know that they're cared for. They know that I care about the mission just as much as they do.
Showing his soldiers that, hey, just because I'm putting it out doesn't mean that I'm going to be the one enforcing it, making you do it and not following it.
I always enjoyed climbing. I enjoyed being in the mountains, outdoors, as many kids do. But then once I started my military career, I looked for opportunities to climb. Wanted to go to the bases where you could climb. Then when I got the job at the Northern Warfare Training Center, and being a mountaineering instructor for 3 years now, that definitely helped quite a bit, just to be out there, in the school, teaching students, talking to people about mountaineering, and then being out in that environment quite often just really helped. And then we could tailor our training to meet the needs of the team, not just me, myself, but the team, to be out in what environment we needed to be in. It really helped us, for all of us, to include myself, helped us on Denali. Being the NCOIC, the Denali expedition, changed my leadership, mostly because I tried to listen to everybody. I wanted them to feel like they had a voice, like they had a say in what we did, because they did. We chose people to be on the team because of skills that they had, and so to not listen to them and not let them feel like they're a part of this, a part of the team, and a part of the decisions that we made every day. In the past, just kind of lower my head, run in straight at whatever and accomplish that task, and boom, 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 get it all done. This was very, very different. It's taking everything into consideration and talking to people and seeing what they had to say and what they felt and what they wanted all at the same time. And then coming up with a consensus, like a group consensus. It's probably the biggest change in my leadership.
So the Army absolutely needs high-achieving leaders. Why? Because high-achieving leaders are the motivating force to get the job done. Without high-achieving leaders, the mission doesn't get accomplished. We don't move anywhere. We don't progress. So we need those individuals to motivate and inspire their followers. When we look at the personality of a high-achieving leader, obviously there's all sorts of personalities, but some points stand out. On the plus side, high-achieving leaders are driven. They have this innate desire to push hard, to hit the next stage, to summit, find the next objective or challenge, and beat it. They don't mind long work hours. They welcome challenges. They look at them as potential opportunities to improve, to grow. They also inspire their followers to do more than the followers think they could do in the first place. But there are also potential areas of concern. For high-achieving leaders, a lot of times they need the praise, they need that positive external feedback, or the feedback from supervisors, superiors, raters, whoever it is, to tell them, hey, you did a good job. And if they don't get that, they can kind of start to spiral, self-doubt, wonder, am I doing good enough? I need to be better. Also, for high-achieving leaders, because they've got such a high op tempo, their motors just run faster. They burn brighter, if you will. What happens when they have followers that don't share the same intensity, that don't have the same op tempo, the same drive? That can be frustrating for high-achieving leaders because they have a vision, they see what needs to be done, and they can get frustrated with subordinates or followers that don't share that same need or desire. And that can result in gaps, or can result in friction, ruptured relationships. So high-achieving leaders, our job is to recognize the good things that we do, as well as take a self-inventory and look and say, what areas can I improve on? Everybody's got weaknesses. What are mine, and how do I turn those into strengths? So as we start our ascent together today, I want you to keep one question in the back of your mind. Why do I lead others? Take a couple minutes, think about it, write it down, talk with your peers as we move up to Camp 1.
On a rope team is that's your lifeline. You're tied to somebody else, and you're traveling over dangerous terrain. So it is to keep you tied in, to keep you safe. Whether the terrain becomes steep or you're walking over a crevasse and that snow bridge were to break, the rope team is what keeps you from falling. It's your lifeline. The rope team leader is critical because he is the one that sees the obstacles first, and he also sets the pace. So when he sets the pace, he needs to be very aware of what other people on the rope team are walking over or around, and adjust the pace of movement that way. If he goes too fast and somebody's going around a certain obstacle, it can become a point of contention pretty quickly. And that's when rope teams can kind of fall apart, is if that rope team leader isn't observant and aware of what everybody else on the rope team is going through. And the other people have to be aware of it as well, but the primary responsibility is the rope team leader to set that pace.
So we just saw a clip of the rope team moving up, and there was a leader leading that rope team up to Camp 1. The character of a leader is hugely important in the performance of the team, how they go about achieving their objectives. The character can determine the success or failure of that team. Here's the thing though, we saw the quote, everybody has their blind spots. As leaders, we all have blind spots. There are certain biases, certain ways that our brains just kind of take shortcuts. We also sometimes don't know our blind spots. We're blind to our blind spots. One of the tasks of becoming a high-achieving leader of character is sitting down, doing the self-assessment. Where are my blind spots? That might be a self-assessment. It might be asking others close to us that know us well for feedback, honest, sometimes a little uncomfortable feedback. What are my weaknesses? What are my blind spots as a leader? And having the strength of character to accept the feedback we get and recognizing, hey, this isn't a knock on me. This is an opportunity for me to improve, to take that next step, to move closer to being the leader I want to be. How would your subordinates describe your character? Thinking of the Army values, answer this question. What is one aspect of my character that I can improve? Record your answer and discuss with your group before we move up to Camp 2.
we have Sergeant First Class Gussie right here, Ranger Arctic, Airborne, boom, Shaka Khan, right? You know, he provides just a really chipper awakening for me in the tent in the morning, because I'm not a morning guy, right? So when he's right there, eye contact, breathing heavy, waiting to say good morning, I really appreciate that. That's great. He also sets a good pace up the mountain, right? He's our pace guy. He has it under control, does all that good stuff. Then we have Staff Sergeant Jonathan Swope. You might know him as Duct Tape Squidward, whatever it may be. You know, obviously he's been on Denali before, and he's a fellow instructor at NWTC. So his knowledge and guidance in here.
No tab.
Being on the mountain, yeah, no tab, that's gone.
My Arctic tab had fallen off somewhere, and it was, lost on Denali. Belongs to Denali now. But the other one that he meant, and we do joke about that one quite a bit, is very early in my Army career, I came in as an 18 X-ray, made it through the Q course, and then I was at First Group for 4 years. Had earned the Special Forces tab, and shortly after, getting there, and was just drinking a lot, drinking too much, making risk choices that shouldn't have been making, and actually it was this time of year I got my second DUI, and it was my second one in 45 days. And so First Special Forces Group decided it would be better if I just went to the regular Army and I had my Special Forces tab revoked. And it was a rough time. All that training and everything, I thought so much of my identity was that I was a Special Forces operator. Little did I find out, that you're not a tab, you're not a hat, it was me. That was all that was left. And it was, a rough moment. And cool thing is now I can laugh. I can still cry about it too, but for the most part, it's just was highlighting some things I needed to change. Yeah, so one of the things that helped me then, and still really does, is I had the 2 DUIs, and I still remember very clearly walking in and there's my Sergeant Major, great guy, Sergeant Major Tompkins, and he looks at me and he says, the rest of your Army career, you will be judged on how you react to this. And, how did I look at it from then on? It's like, this is my opportunity. This is my opportunity to fix this. This is my opportunity to prove that that I can live a life without making these risky choices, and that I can, just exist without drinking too much. And I don't drink anymore. Like I have chosen not to. And those things and looking at this as an opportunity is what got me through it, not really anything else. And then I still all the time, and I see probably one of the things that helps me the most now is when I watch these younger soldiers and I know they're drinking too much, and they're just like, yeah, I didn't get a DUI, and I'm looking at them and I say, well, not yet, and share that experience. And that alone is extremely helpful. I can look back at it, and now it's something good. Now it's kind of a strength of mine. But and it took me a while to view it that way. But once I did, it got better.
So we just saw an instance where a high-achieving leader failed. There's 2 types of failure. One, we fail at a mission, we fail at a task. There's something that we're not able to do. Why? There are a ton of variables that influence that. Is it the environment? Is this situation? Factors beyond our control that contributed to that failure. But there's a second, more subtle, but more concerning type of failure that high-achieving leaders sometimes face. And that second type of failure that high-achieving leaders sometimes face is the inability to accept failure, to accept that as that's part of life. we all fail sometimes. One of the potential traps that high achieving leaders fall into is this expectation or belief that I can't fail. I can't mess up. I have to be perfect. And if I'm not perfect, then what does that mean about me? As a psychologist, I've worked with a lot of leaders that look at that and say, if I fail, then that must mean I'm not good enough. If I fail, then I'm unworthy to lead. That's one way of looking at it, but it's not helpful. It doesn't make us into better leaders. What it can do is cause us to crumble. I have found that the difference between resilient leaders and non-resilient or less resilient leaders is how they approach failure. Here's the thing. Events matter. Things matter. Things that happen to us matter. But what matters more is the meaning of the things that happen to us. Failures are going to happen. What matters more than the failure is, what does that mean about me? Instead of looking at it as proof that we're not good enough, can we look at it instead as an opportunity for growth? Can we tell ourselves, hey, I messed that one up. Let me retool, refit, let me analyze it and figure out, how can I do this better next time? So next time I don't fail. That makes me a better leader. That makes me a more resilient leader. So as a high achieving leader, sometimes we slip into the trap of thinking that any constructive criticism is an attack. And that's based on our own insecurities. The moment that we see feedback from others, whether it be a sergeant major, a leader, somebody whose opinion we care about and that matters to us, when we see their constructive criticism as an attack, that's when we're feeding our own insecurities. And it's keeping us from being better leaders. The challenge as high achieving leaders is to be able to take constructive criticism and not be insecure, but be open and see it as just what it's meant to do. Help us be better. Take some time to think through this question. How can I be more resilient as a leader? Record your answer and discuss with your group before we move up to Camp 3.
On the way to Camp 3.
Arctic Tough and Arctic Warrior, you know, we have kind of a saying that we battle cold, we conquer mountains. You know, and I think in Arctic Warrior, do they really battle the cold? I mean, can you really battle the cold? Can you fight it? No, you got to show up and you belong to that. You belong to the cold. That's your environment, that's your home. And so, in a way, you make that cold your friend. And if you can make cold your friend, and then here comes your enemy, and you got your buddy cold over here, and you say, hey, you go take care of this for me. And if they have not made cold their friend, they will get whooped every day. And so Arctic Tough, that just means we got some friends, and it's cold, and it's snow, and it's everything that's Alaska. That's our friend. That's when you're Arctic Tough. You got good friends. You have to know your clothes. You have to know your equipment. And you have to be innovative in the combinations that you use, know what works and what's going to make you too warm and what's not going to make you warm enough, and what those combinations are. For instance, my go-to when it is really cold are those big old Arctic mittens. I know for a fact that my hands will always be warm, even if it's negative 45. But I do have to have other clothes with me as well that are going to keep the rest of me warm. And I know what those combinations are. And so then I can just sit there and I can exist in it. Or I can run around and do push-ups and try and get warm. But I know what it takes. I know what it takes to stay warm. And that's really, I'd say 90% of the battle of existing in the Arctic is knowing what clothes are going to keep you warm and keep you alive. And then you can thrive in it. If you can stay warm, that's a huge part of the battle. And even in sometimes, we're using that cold environment. So we're taking a snow saw and we're cutting these ice blocks, and these ice blocks set up and they create a wind block so that, negative 60 below with wind chill is, maybe negative 40 with wind chill. And that is quite a bit more manageable, negative 40 than negative 60. And just being innovative in those ways to use that environment to just get you up over that cusp, and now you're okay, now you're safe.
One of the hallmarks of a high-achieving leader is their ability to take a problem and come up with a solution that meets the demands of the situation. There's two ways of looking at a problem. We can either become problem-focused, where we just sit and stew on the problem, and we go back to doctrine, or we go back to tactics, techniques, procedures that maybe don't fit perfectly for this situation, in this context. Innovative leaders, instead, are more solution-focused. They take the problem as it is, not as they wish it would be, and then they look and say, what can I do to overcome this problem? What can I do to come up with new ideas, new ways? What hasn't been tried before? Does it make sense? Does it match my experience, common sense? And will it get me to the end state that I want? What this entails also is the willingness to go out on a limb, try something new, test the limits a little bit. Sometimes that backfires, sometimes it doesn't. But without that, we can't be as high achieving as we need to be as leaders. Take some time to think through this question. How can I be more innovative as a leader? Record your answer and discuss with your group before we move up to Camp 4.
many people on the team that want to do very different things. We had kind of been stuck at 14 camp for a little while, and there's not much to do, so people want to go. They want to go and they want to make the next step, but you want to do that and you want to do it safe. And so the tensions is how do we do that and how do we do it safely? Some people wanted to leave right then. Some people wanted to leave later on that night, and some people wanted to wait till the next day. All three are possibilities. Weather comes into play and things like that. And so there was a fairly intense discussion about what we were going to do next.
If I ever say, I'd say we leave at 1800.
Today?
Today.
Oh, that's not gonna happen.
You don't.
I don't want to do
I
that.
think it's a good time. I think definitely today, if there's a weather window, I think putting an actual hard time on it. I mean, you can't really do that on a mountain.
Yeah.
To a certain degree, but like 18 hard out. Like if if we see this at 1800, that's our time to call.
Yeah,
and by all means, but
we don't leave till 20 then. That's
yeah,
what I'm saying.
but regardless, like you can't put a hard time constraint on a mountain.
Well, then we're never gonna leave. We're gonna be stuck here 14 for life.
Okay, then you're just gonna get socked in. You're gonna run a chance of someone getting injured with no visibility on the side.
We've
of the
only
mountain.
been here for 3 days, which is really short.
There's tons of pros. There's tons of cons.
Like I said my piece. I say 1800. That's it. I'm done.
When we get there, what we run into is you're the coldest part of the day. We've got there, we've sweat, everything's wet. We throw on level 7s, build camp, whatever. We do run into that issue.
Well,
and every other camp there
so when
is
you
asleep.
arrive, yeah.
And if we need some help, we're gonna have to wake their ass up.
So when you arrive though, you're warm because you just arrived, and then for the next couple hours of working, you set your camp up.
Yeah.
You're working, so you're staying warm through that.
It's just a risk.
I did have questions. If the team trusted me, you can tell. Like I'm sitting there and I'm listening, and people are fairly passionately voicing their opinion, and I did have questions, about my leadership. Like, am I really listening? Am I really listening to exactly what they want, or am I just caught up in my own perceptions of the way things should be done? Those questions I asked myself at that time. And, in the end, and now outside looking in, with hindsight being what it was, is I do think the team trusted me, and we all ended up safe. So in the end, the right choices were made. But at that intense moment, it's rough. It's difficult. It's difficult if you're the leader, and it's difficult if you are wanting your opinion heard. And it's hard to exist in that moment until you get to step outside of it and see it completely for what it is.
So trust truly is the coin of the realm in our squads, in our units, between us and the individuals we lead. And to slightly modify an old quote, the day soldiers stop bringing you their problems is the day you have ceased to become an efficient or an effective leader. I think that's one of the biggest indicators that there's been a break in trust, is when soldiers, those that we lead, no longer trust us enough to come to us with their problems. Trust is built generally not in one huge act, but over small acts over time, daily things. The biggest predictor of trust is soldiers knowing or believing that you care about them. Because if they believe that you care about them, they will trust you with their problems, big or small. So how do we go about increasing trust in our teams? The biggest thing is to care. If soldiers know you care, they'll come to you. There's another old quote. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. You might have all the answers in the world, but if our soldiers don't trust us, they won't care about the stuff that we have to give them. That trust enables us to win, to overcome at the critical moment. Whenever a huge task is placed upon us, the trust that we have between each other, when it's tried, will enable us to win the day. Take some time to think through this question. How can I build trust with others as their leader? Record your answers and discuss with your group before we move up to Camp 5.
How do you prepare yourself to sit for another 24 hours and wait for another weather window? And you just have to tell yourself it's okay. And we talked about it many times on the mountain. It's just like, it's so difficult not knowing what the outcome's going to be. Not knowing if this weather call that we're going to get is maybe slightly more risky, or should we wait? And it's tough. It's tough, but real simple. We just had to weigh everything, bring everything into account, and let everybody be heard. And we did. We sat and we waited, and we got that perfect weather call, and it was the right decision to wait. And because we had wonderful weather, we got that high pressure system, and you can just see everybody's demeanor change when that good weather call, compared to when we were down at Camp 14, when there was bad weather and there was tension, and just knowing that, you know, bad weather or just unknown and risky situations can create a tense atmosphere, and just being ready to accept that tense atmosphere and work with it and be in it and just a part of it. And the same thing when it's awesome, when it's great. You get to be a part of it, and it's fun. But, you know, just waiting.
It's only 2.25 miles, but you climb 3,000 feet in 2.25 miles, which is significant, especially significant because you're well above 17,000 feet. And so, you know, 2.25 miles, a lot of times it takes people anywhere from 8 to 10 hours to summit. And so you have to be careful.
No showers will persist tonight below 14,000 feet. And a weak high eastern pressure system moves over the mountain tonight and tomorrow.
We gotta go.
Down at 7,000 camp tonight, mostly cloudy with a chance of...
Plateauing for leaders is especially dangerous because we've made it up to a certain level. We've achieved success so far, And sometimes when we stop to refit, recuperate, reset, we might say, hey, I've come far enough. I've done enough. Now I just want to coast. I want to glide. Here's the thing though. We don't make progress when there's no stress on the system. We don't grow. Think about going to the gym. Your muscles don't grow until you stress them out. And then they grow, they evolve, and they adapt. As leaders, we have to keep pushing for the next thing. We have to balance that though with taking time to recuperate. We push hard, just like in the gym, you push hard and then you need a recovery day that enables you to push hard again. When we're climbing the mountains of life, there are times where it's healthy, it's good for us to stop, to recuperate, but not at the expense of losing that edge, that hunger. We need to keep our eyes on where we want to go. What's our next summit? That growth mindset enables us to recuperate, but still stay focused on the mission. Take some time to think through this question. What must I be doing now to prepare for the next level as a leader? Record your answer and discuss it with your group before making the final push to the summit.
All right, so right now we're on the Autobahn, which is just beyond the 17,000 foot camp en route to the Denali summit.
Chaplain Heron, Arctic Wolf Chaplain, here on the summit of Denali, highest point in North America. So thankful to have the opportunity to be here. So thankful to be a part of the Arctic Wolves Brigade, the only Arctic Striker Brigade in the Army. So many great leaders and such a great brigade that puts people first. And it's so great to be Arctic Wolf standing on the summit of Denali.
USARAC Denali Expedition Team. It's June 4th, right?
June 4th.
Okay. June 4th, we made it here. We had a great time. We're just hoping that we get down safe. Safe climb is the best climb.
20,310 feet. Here we go.
The walk to the summit, this was several things, like super slow, really, really slow. And especially for me, like, I think all of us had hit, you'd say, kind of hit their limit or kind of hit a wall at different points on the climb. And that was my wall. It was that summit day. Really, really slowed down. I was probably the slowest person on the team. Probably, and I know I was. And, but still at the same time, like, I knew that we were still gonna make it. We had really good weather and we were still going fast enough, just not as fast as we had in the past. But it was nice. It was really, really nice to know that we had this huge weather window. And, you know, I'd been there before, so I was, you know, barring any injury, I knew we were gonna make it. I knew we were gonna go to the top. On summit day, you do hit some fairly steep terrain, and so that really, really slows you down. The air is just super, super thin. And so anytime you hit a little small hill, It's just, you get to the top and you got to stop and breathe and just suck that air in for a little while. And, you know, you just feel slightly dizzy, kind of like stuff. You can just tell your brain's not working on full capacity. And so then there's that. And, you know, working together as the rope team when you're mentally a little bit slower as well, just makes it all difficult. It's still fun though, but there's little things like that that really, really slow you down. So standing on the summit for, you know, the second time in 3 years felt like it felt good personally, but even bigger than that, bigger than me, bigger than my summit was that we did it as a team. And we had spent 8 months training together through COVID conditions and having to adjust our plan many, many times just to meet for COVID testing and this and that and all these other things, because we still had jobs as well. You know, and we had done all that, and then to actually have accomplished that goal, to be standing on the summit. We still all knew that a good climb is a safe climb. So if we hadn't summited, as long as we all made it down safe, that was our overall goal. But to actually summit was really nice. But we did it together. It wasn't me. It wasn't any one person. It was something that we had done together. And that was the best part.
High-achieving leaders have to develop the ability to balance taking care of the mission while also taking care of their soldiers. One of the ways they do that is by transforming individual successes into team successes. Why? What does that do? High-achieving leaders have the ability to turn individual successes into a uniting factor. It's not I did it, it's we did it. And you are important. You matter. You helped us achieve this. No matter the size of the contribution, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have reached as high. It would have been harder for the entire team to reach the summit. You matter. That turns a successful individual into a great high-achieving leader. Take a few minutes to answer this final question. What does it mean to put people first? Record your answer and discuss with your group. Once complete, please take a brief survey.